Asking why not can unlock great possibilities and adventures. Welcome to the Forged by Trust podcast. I'm your host, Dreeke, executive coach, former U.S. Marine, spy recruiter, best-selling author, and your trust and communication expert. Today's episode, See the Light in Others, is brought to you by my good friend, the great giver of trust, Hal Halladay, and his inspiring organization, Wrap Ukraine in Quilts. We need your help to wrap the children and families of Ukraine with the comfort of a handmade quilt. Check out what you can do today and inspirational stories and journeys and provide a sense of comfort and safety to a refugee family struggling from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Check it out at wrapukraineinquilts.com. Coming up next on the Forged by Trust podcast.
And in this experience, there's just times when you need help and you have to go ask for help. And you have to admit you're not capable on your own of doing what it is you've decided to do without someone's help. And I saw the miracles of when I needed help from someone and they showed up. And so when I teach leaders who are trying to be better leaders about trust, first thing I tell them is, you go first. Nobody has to earn your trust. You go first. You trust people and you believe in people. This is what I tell the people I coach. It's always evolving because there's 8 billion people on the earth. And until you've understood all of them, there's work for you to do.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dreeke, and on the Forged by Trust podcast, we decode the interpersonal communication skills of the world's most acclaimed forgers of trust. We unlock the skills and techniques from spies, spy recruiters, master interrogators, globally recognized behavioral experts, C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, acclaimed authors, and thought leaders. Each episode provides specific actions that you can immediately apply to any aspect of your personal or professional life. Today's episode, See the Light in Others, is with my good friend and inspiration, the incredibly compassionate Hal Halladay. Hal Halladay empowers organizations around the world to innovate and drive business growth through coaching and leadership. His proven methods enable organizations and people to achieve breakthrough results. As a C-level executive in high-growth companies for 20-plus years, Hal developed a proven path to create cultures of performance, leadership and execution excellence, and the secret to sustainable growth. Hal is CEO of Breakthrough Leadership, where he provides unique leadership development experiences that unlock and expand leadership capabilities in high-growth companies. His coaching and methods give leaders the tools to replace fear with confidence. Hal began his career as an investment banker working in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. He co-founded Wrap Ukraine with Quilts, a non-profit organization that has provided comfort and love via more than 20,000 handmade quilts to Ukrainian refugee children. During the episode today, we talk about See the Light in Others, asking why not, the gift of trust, and sending love to Ukraine refugees. Hal, welcome to Forged by Trust. I've been looking forward to this immensely since our last conversation we had.
Great. Well, I'm super glad to be here and another chance to talk to you.
And boy, the things we chatted about last time were really inspiring. And so most important part is the title you came up with, because it really resonated very strongly with me. And that is See the Light in Others. So take us on a journey. What was that spark that started your desire and ability to see the light in others?
It's something that I've tried to do my whole life. And I honestly feel like I got this genetically or from observing my mom. She passed away in April. And so I've had a chance to spend a lot of time thinking about what that's meant, processing it all. But she just had this ability to believe in everyone and to see not just what they were, but what they could become. And I think I inherited some of that. I observed it, but I do believe that what has made me the best leader that I can be, and I'm still working on it because leadership's, in my opinion, a mountain without a top. You just keep working at it. It's part of your life. But I've sort of adopted this idea of I believed in people. It's helped me build trust. It's helped me build a relationship of confidence with people. And so when I see someone as who they can become, it fills them up with a little something that they can feel that confidence. And we're always second guessing and questioning ourselves. And when, as a leader, I can see something in someone for who they can be tomorrow or a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, or 10 years from now, that is going to raise their game. And so,
and Hal, could I
go
stop
ahead.
you for 1 second? I'd like to go back to your mom a little bit, if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
What a great behavior she modeled. Do you happen to remember the first time she saw something in someone and inspired them to elevate themselves?
Well, I can tell you a couple of times when she inspired me. And so the first time I was in college, it was right before the 1984 Olympics, which were going to be in Los Angeles. I was at the University of Utah. And I said to myself, by the way, my mom was also, she had this great 2 words she would always say anytime you were wondering about something. And it was as simple as this: why not? Right. She had this sense of adventure and curiosity for the world. So
where do you think that came from in
her? Yeah, she grew up in a very small town. So, her opportunity to see the world was very limited. It was an agricultural small town. But her father, my grandfather, his name was Golden, and that's my middle name. He had this same, everything was an adventure to him. As a kid, we'd go fishing, and you just couldn't go up to a piece of water and throw your line in. You had to crawl and sneak up on the fish. And it wasn't because he was a fisherman. It's because that made the experience all the more richer and, of course, memorable. I mean, I just remember everything he did, he made bigger and in some way just richer, just an experience. It wasn't just an event, but it was an experience that you could not forget. So I think she might have learned it or inherited it from him. But here I was, I'm thinking, wow, the Olympics are, for me, I was at the University of Utah, 700 miles away. When am I ever going to get the chance to go to an Olympics and have the free time and flexibility of a college student? So I decided I'd leave. I wouldn't go to school the spring semester to go to and try and get a job at the Olympics. Of course, I just, checked online to see what the job. Well, no, there was, I had to go to the library, find an LA Times, look at the back of the paper, find somebody that was hiring a security guard or something like that. And I get the job, long distance. Back then, not easy, of course.
And what was the job doing?
Security guard.
Do you remember what you had to put in that resume? And that's pretty remarkable to be able to do that by snail mail.
Yeah, I had to have a phone call. But they did hire me, remotely, which was kind of remarkable that they didn't have an interview, especially for security. But, I tried to share why I'd be responsible, accountable, experiences I'd had showing up and, doing the job. And I'd had a few experiences that I think helped me.
Sorry, what do you think those experiences were that helped you?
Well, I'd worked as a kid. I'd worked a lot. I'd had, my father and mother were school teachers. So I just, and a value at our house was you work hard. Right. And you earn everything you have. So if I wanted to do something, buy something, I worked. And so,
what was your first job?
My first job was delivering a paper that wasn't the newspaper. It was almost like an advertisement paper, and It didn't come out regularly, and you didn't subscribe to it. It was spam, basically. I think
nail spam.
But I got a penny a paper. So right. I'd roll and pack, 200 papers into a bag over my shoulder. I'd go door to door with a rubber band, put it on the doorknob. That was my job. And then it was I think we delivered once a week. So my paycheck for the month was like, $8 to $10. But I was 11, and it was a way to, I had jobs around the house, but that was like the first time where I left the house, went and did my job, and was saving money to buy a bike. So that's how it started for me.
Absolutely. Life forging things. Yeah. Very similar.
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so, and I just had experiences like that. And I just tried to show accountability. I mean, I just felt like if you're a security guard, by the way, I'm not wearing a gun. It's just a presence. I had a uniform, and I'd be at venues, and, I remember going to the training, and they're like, hey, if trouble breaks out, you're not the police. No one's expecting you to, you let the police and the real security do the job. You're there just as a presence. And so, it was kind of a friendly uniform. It wasn't like a heavy security job, but I still felt like, and I wasn't sure what the job was going to be when I applied. So I just felt like, the key here is to show that I'm accountable, I'm responsible, I'm dependable.
And how
I'll
old were
show
you?
up. I was 21.
Wow.
I was 21. And so here I am, and I'm very nervous to go tell my parents I'm not going. I mean, I've made the decision. I wasn't asking their permission. I'm going to leave school to earn money because I wasn't going to make a lot of money, and I had to travel there, and they're not paying you a lot. It was somewhere between volunteer and pay.
Right.
So I said I'm going to get a job, leave school, and to go work at the Olympics in Los Angeles. And, it was just different then. You just going places. How are you going to get the job? So I was very nervous to tell my parents, but I sat down with them. And I just remembered my mom being so excited and happy for me. And I was so worried that I was going to get lectured about being irresponsible and leaving school to go have this, maybe once in a lifetime experience. And I mean, I've never forgotten. I can picture that sitting at the table with them. My dad, on the other hand, gave me a look like, what are you doing? But my mom, she rules the day every time. Like, she stepped right into it with me and said, that's incredible. Tell me about it. Where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? She had no fear for me. She just saw the possibilities. And of course, she knew there were details. She knew you'd have to take care of some things, but that wasn't where she focused. Even if maybe that would come up at some point, her reaction wasn't, oh, wait a minute. Can you answer all these questions? Have you thought about all these things, right? It was what she started with, which was, that's awesome. That's going to be, she knew it. She knew what it would be. She knew exactly what it would be. And I just remember how empowered I felt to know that I didn't have to fear them and therefore the experience, because, my mom was just, wanted to help and was so excited and happy for me. And so, I never feared again making a decision like that would be a rich experience, even if it wasn't conventional or even if it was, different. I want to tell you one quick more story about my mom. The other really impactful moment where I learned this from her. I was CEO of a software company in 2006 and then into 2008. And then the financial, big meltdown of, financial crisis of 2008. And we couldn't continue to raise money. And I had to let everybody go. And I thought, well, I'll just go get a job. I'm highly employable, right? I couldn't get it. Like, it just wasn't working. I couldn't get a job. And my reunion to go to my business school reunion was coming up. I don't remember what year. And somehow my mom knew that. She said, so are you going to Chicago to go to your reunion? And I'm like, I can't go there and be unemployed. Like, I can't face that. And by the way, since I'm not earning money, I don't know if I can even afford the flight. And she just said, okay, well, you're going, I'm sending you the money and to go, and you're going to go there and go connect with all those people that you know and love and that know and love you. And you're going to have a great experience. You can't miss that. And so that sort of jolted me out of my sadness and victimness that I was experiencing. And I did go, and I learned a powerful lesson. That I'd been to a handful of them before, and I've been to a handful of them since. And that experience was no different than any of them. The friends I had, the people that I knew cared about me, didn't care what I was doing. They weren't there to check on what I was doing. They were there to check on me. They cared about me. Hal Halladay, not Hal Halladay CEO or Hal Halladay, fast food server. They just, and that was also a powerful, they saw me for who I was. They saw me, they saw the light in me. They saw me who they had known for, 20 years, 25 years. And it didn't matter what I was doing. And, I'm so grateful that my mom knew that. She trusted that the people that I talked about, the friends I'd had, would treat me that way, and that it wouldn't be something that I needed to fear or that I'd be humiliated, but be vulnerable enough to just go and be myself. And by the way, get whatever comes from you being you. And what that result was realizing that people really didn't care what I was doing, but they cared about me. So there's two powerful lessons my mom helped me learn.
Oh, those are fantastic ones. I love the earlier one. After that experience, you feared nothing ever again.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a powerful statement.
Yeah.
And both your mom and your friends, they saw you, you said. What do they see when they see you? What does someone see?
Well, I love people. By the way, I'm an introvert. So I've got a brain that likes to think, and I like numbers, and I like to, get in my space. But I really love being around people. I love teams, and I love having.
How's that manifest? What's that look like to someone else? You say you love people. What's that look like?
Getting to know people, connecting with them, laughing with them, caring about them, seeing them for, seeing possibilities for them if they're worried about something or fearful, or they want to leave a job and start a business. I love to support people in jumping out of their comfort zone and taking, leaving something behind to get something better. And so naturally, when I'm around people, kids, I've coached a lot of youth sports. Like, I like finding the things that people can do that they can't see themselves doing because of fear or everything that's been said to them up to that point, and just trying to clear that for them so they can see who they are and have some successes, especially maybe somebody who hasn't had success or believed in themselves, or had parents or teachers or coaches or siblings who haven't believed in them. I just love that. That's why I love coaching, because, I had a coaching call yesterday, and I just told the person, listen, I'm here because I care about you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm only here to help you get what you want to achieve and to understand what that is. Other than that, my only agenda is who you want to become. And it's just such an incredible way for me to live. I don't know if it's for everybody, but for me, it's just so rewarding and powerful to have that kind of impact, where somebody then discovers something about themselves and then goes on to just being happy to get that fear or worry that's in front of them out of the way. It's so liberating.
I'm curious. You mentioned you've been in a C-suite, you've been a CEO. When people hear that, a lot of people will think maybe not as people-oriented. Have you had any experiences that were challenging because you were so people-oriented, even though you're in not just a leadership position, but also a managerial position?
Yeah. Well, I'm an odd specimen because I have this math mind, logical kind of strategic mind, which is really helpful sometimes. And yet, I'm a reformed investment banker. I spent 7 years working on Wall Street, and by the way, that seemed like a very analytical job. But what I realized is, as you progress in that career, it ultimately comes about building trust with companies and relationships. And I got the job because my analytical skills. But I'm like, wow, this is a dream for me, because I know I can build trust quickly with people and connect with them. And so I'm gonna have the chance to continue to succeed.
What was your experiences that you knew you could build trust with people? That's a great skill set to have as an analytical investment banker.
Well, I here's where it awakened for me. I don't know if I did it intentionally for a long time,
First time rarely is.
Right. So I'm again at business school. I discover investment banking. I didn't even know what it was till I got to business school. And, it was probably kind of a quiet industry until the late 80s, which is, I graduated in 90. And so that's when the economy, a lot of things started to change, the internet, all that, that decade of the 90s. So I don't come from an Ivy League school. They hire the very best people in the country. And I was successful at college, but I wasn't, it wasn't an Ivy League school. They only recruited about 10 schools, but then I got into a really good business school. So I can get recruited But then there are people who've worked in investment banking or worked for IBM or worked for brand name companies, and didn't have that. So now I'm sitting in the interview room, and I know the peers that are next to me that are going into the interview next. And I know that guy worked at Goldman Sachs. I know that guy went to Harvard. And I'm thinking, what chance do I even have? I'm way out of my league here, and I probably don't belong. Those thoughts came to my mind. Then I'm, also trying to remember, well, why not? And, what would my mom be telling me right now? And I probably called her and told her that as well. I don't remember that specific conversation, but here's what I did when I went into an interview. I'd been coached to be sure and get my agenda across to the person that was hiring me or potentially hiring me. So what am I good at? What do I know how to do? What are my skills? What are my grades, etc.? So make sure you got to have your list of 5 things or whatever it was. And you have to make sure by the time that 30 minutes is over, your pitch has been made. And well, I realized my pitch, no matter how good I gave it, was not going to equal the guys next to me based on the waiting room experience. So I walked into the room and I looked around the office of the guy interviewing me for things that I had some connection to. So if I saw he had a picture at the New York Marathon, then I said, "Oh, you're a marathon runner." And all of a sudden it turned from being an interview to being a conversation. And, we talked about we talked about running, or we talked about, where, I see you went to the University of Utah. Are you a skier? Yeah. Or, oh yeah, I love going out, then we're talking about skiing. We didn't talk much about me. What I learned was they would end that interview very happy. I mean, not just like superficially happy, but like feeling good about the experience. Whether I was qualified or not, they felt good about the experience. And later when they said, "Hey, how'd that go? I like that guy. That's a guy I'd like to work with." I don't know if I ever had to defend my credentials. I probably did in some of those, but I just decided I'm going to go make a connection with these people. I'm not going to do what they told me to do to get my agenda across. What I'm going to do is listen. I'm going to ask a question like, "Oh, you're a marathoner," or I see you've got that Native American headdress, what's the story there? And so my questions actually turned into an effective, and I got a job when some of the people in the waiting room didn't, right? Who had better credentials than me. And that's when I knew for sure there's a strategy here that really works with people.
Yeah. Better credentials at things, but not as good as credentials at people. It's not how you make people feel about you that matters. It's how you make them feel about themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. Your pitches only work if you're pitching in terms of their priorities and how you're going to solve their problems.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, especially the more senior these people were, they didn't want to ask me a bunch of, the junior people were all gung ho. That's probably where it wasn't as effective because they were all about the transaction and the credentials. But if I was talking, and by the way, who has the most weight in the decision? It's going to be the managing director, right? And it's those guys who are like, and would remember me, if I got a job or even I got an offer, and they'll go back and say, "Yeah, you're the marathoner, right? You're the guy that we talked about running. Like, how many miles did you get this week, right? He's running in the winter." Like, all of a sudden, the conversation wasn't awkward. It was right back to the things we talked about before, and it felt natural, and it felt comfortable, and it felt friendly, rather than this transaction that everybody walked into feeling like they had to nail it, they had to get it right, that all this pressure to, deliver your pitch, all of that. And so I'm not saying that works every time, but the reason it was powerful to me and why I remember it so clearly, and it's been meaningful for me, is because I don't think I get the job any other way. And by the way, I've got a son now who just got a job at Ogilvy in Washington, D.C. And in May, he graduated in May. And I didn't say anything to him about it, but he wanted to get this job at this company, and, which is a big global company. And he did the exact same thing. He did the exact same thing. I don't even know if I told him this story before, but he did the exact same thing.
Right.
He went in there he went to the University of Utah. He's my only kid that out of 4 that went to the school I did too. But he got back there. He was up, he got somehow into the final 50 for the cell day. And he told me, my strategy is just to distinguish myself for who I am, not for what I've done. And so I'm going to take a different approach. And rather than, pitch them about me, I'm just going to connect with people. And, then he was one that got an offer. So, and it was a long shot. He knew it was a long shot. And he said, hey, why not? I might as well try. Right. So I've passed some of those genes on to him, which is
generational. Why not? I love it.
Which was really cool to see. I was super proud of him. I mean, really inspired me that he figured it out, took that approach. I mean, I was super proud of him, and then, got the job, which it doesn't always work, but that will be foundational for him. Oh, yeah. He'll tell that story in 40 years on whatever a podcast is going to be in 40 years.
And a more generational passing on of that curiosity and why not. So what's next? Business school, we're done with that. We got this great job. We're doing great things because we're starting to see the light in others, but more importantly, people are seeing the light in us. What's next?
Yeah, well, being somebody who was just not transactional investment banking, I was sort of a unique experience. I had some people say, you don't belong here. Somebody tell me on a plane that I was, a guy I just met and heard about my background and some things. And he's like, yeah, I'm not sure you belong, maybe you should start looking for another job. I mean, he knew me for like 11 minutes, right? And I was like, wow. And I've never forgotten that, because that was I just couldn't even understand, how he could get there. And I didn't care what he said, but it just was another example of how I didn't want to be. So, but in the end, that was a hard lifestyle for me and is for anybody. And I really didn't think I'd be there for 7 years. I thought I'd, go for a few years. I kind of made that agreement with my wife, but we moved to Los Angeles where the lifestyle was a little different. But ultimately, I could see companies, I'd go in, you'd sort of see companies from a 30,000 foot level. And I really wanted to know what it was like to have impact, with strategic decisions and in execution and with people on the ground. And, of course, that was a curiosity. I mean, my number one strength is learner. So I'm very curious and I like to do and try things. But, you find out there's bullets on the ground, like flying at 30,000 feet. It's a pretty safe place. And so I've had those experiences. I think what can help me as I coach and, have leadership workshops and courses and help companies use leadership as a lever for growth is because I didn't learn coaching by a coaching course. I've been trying to be a better leader my whole life since I was in junior high. I mean, I'll tell you this great story since we're telling stories. I was in 3rd grade. And by the way, I'm not so proud of this, but it tells you a little bit about who I am. But I'm in 3rd grade. And in my mind, now, we can't go back and, throw the red flag and go to the monitor and do the replay on this. But in my mind, my 3rd grade teacher told us as a class, if we achieved this, being quiet for 5 minutes, or everybody got their work done by the top of the hour, or we got in the lunch line and didn't, flick each other's ears or whatever it was, whatever nonsense, then we would get to go to recess 15 minutes early. So, and by the way, recess was it for me. Like that was the moment of liberation, right? And so, where it gets, whatever it was, it gets to be 15 minutes before recess. I don't think it was the same day. It was like a week later. And I raise my hand and say, and I remember my teacher's name, Miss Kelly, I guess it's time for us to go to recess early. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, remember when you told us if we did this, we could get to go to recess 15 minutes early? And she's like, no, I don't remember that. And that's not what we're doing. So sit down and, get back to work. Recess will start 15 minutes later when it always does. And I just said, well, okay, thanks for your input. But who in the class remembers when Miss Kelly said this and we were going to get 15 minutes early, and every kid, whether they remembered or not, raised their hand? And I said, okay, let's go. and we all walked out the door to recess. That didn't work out so good for me, but everybody actually got up and walked out the door. And, of course, she collared me and was trying to get people back in, but I think she just gave up and figured I'm not going to get this back in the can.
Was that before or after you learned from your mother to fear nothing?
Well, I think how my mom treated me helped me be this person, which, by the way, my dad had to tell me, listen, you can't do that. And I remember the stern conversation he had with me. And he was a school teacher. So he's like, you're the kid that's driving me nuts at school. Like, so, but here's what I thought about myself. I just assumed I was the equal to the teacher. I didn't think I was better than or smarter, but I didn't think there was a power dynamic that had her in one place and me in another. I mean, of course, I couldn't think through any of that at the time. I just felt like I was her equal. My opinion mattered. My memory mattered. My point of view mattered as much as hers. But by the way, that isn't true. Really, like I needed to sort of know my place a little bit, but it came from, I think, my mom treated me, always as an equal, as somebody. So because she didn't see me for who I was at 9 years old or 10, I guess, maybe I mean, this was part of it. I don't know if I've actually ever thought this through this way, that she saw me not as a 9-year-old or 10-year-old, but someone who was, more than that when I was that age. And so I assumed I was, and, because she would give me choices.
She saw your light, not your age.
Exactly. And would ask me, well, what do you think? Or what do we do now? Or, what about this? Should we try that? And so because she saw me maybe differently, I saw myself that way. And so I just assumed I was equal. And by the way, the next year I had teachers who saw that in me. And I'll give you a quick, another kid story. We were doing this project and we were learning about people on the prairie, on the Oregon Trail. And we had to make butter by shaking a jar. And it was one of the activities. Somehow there wasn't enough cream, There was a store that was like a block and a half away. I had a teacher come over to me and say, give me $5 and say, Hal, I need you to run to the store and get some cream and run back here so we can keep this activity going. And I said, okay. And took the money and ran to the store and ran back. And, so he completely trusted me, completely, like to leave school on my own, go to a store, find the product, check out and come back. I mean, I don't think I'd be doing that for a kid, but he did. And I honestly think it's because that year I had teachers who valued the way I saw myself. And it was never that I thought of as like hubris or pride or that somehow I'm better than anybody. And by the way, I saw everybody the same way. So I didn't think I was better than anyone. I thought everybody saw themselves this way. I thought everybody should be, equal in some way and their voice mattered in some way. But I did find those teachers along the way that were either threatened by that or who thought, wow, I can have a relationship with this kid that's different than maybe with other kids. And ultimately, it was trust. Ultimately, they, for him to send me, to a store with money to make up to, as a fourth grader is still kind of remarkable to me. So, wow, you've evoked some memories and stories I haven't told in a long time, like in decades. So
they're forging of who we are today, and
absolutely.
The echoes live on forever throughout our lives, and then we pass them along. It's a fascinating journey. And that's where I want to keep going, though. As fascinating as the origin story is, the things you've done recently are part of that continuity of your life and seeing the light of others and having that no fear. So I'd like to go there next, if possible.
Yeah.
And our mutual friend Lane and what you discovered along this path of trekking across Europe.
Right. Well, Lane, I met Lane.
And for those listening, Lane Knighting, his episode is recently out as well. So we're making reference to that one. So go back and list that one. Anyway, sorry, Hal, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You should. I hadn't known Lane very long. I met him actually Speakers Association conference in Indianapolis, I think, but we both lived in Phoenix. We both rode bikes. We learned that in Indianapolis. So then we thought, oh, we'll get together, we'll ride a bike. He was riding his bike. He was planning to ride his bike from, if you listen to the podcast, maybe his episode, maybe you'll know that he has this plan to ride through 192 countries. I don't know if he said that, but that's his plan. Yeah. So, which to me is, I'm like, why not? But it's unimaginable to me. But he said he was going from Germany into Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And that connected with me. And it connected with me through my mom, actually. So my mom's pretty central to this story too, because my mom's ancestry, and the ancestor we always heard about, was this woman in Norway who left to go to the United States and left her family and came and forged her way to a new life in the new world in like 1852 or something. And she was sort of like the sacred ancestor that we all knew the story. And she was from Norway. And I wasn't sure I wanted to go with Lane. I hadn't known him very long. It was going to be me and him for 14 days, camping together, riding 650 miles. Like I'm up for some things, but I wasn't sure, right?
What was the point of this? I mean, what was the inspiration to want
Well, Lane's promise to me, which was absolutely fulfilled times 10, was you will discover things about yourself when you are on the road. And it's a lot to do with identity. I was a chief people officer at a, $100 million software company with 700 employees. And he didn't tell me the details, but what I realized when I was there was I just looked like I was homeless. Whatever currency I was trading on back in my career life, my background, my pedigree, my accomplishments on a bike on a back road in Sweden. If your bike breaks down, no one cares. No one comes over and says, oh, you're the chief people officer or you're the guy that's, worked on Wall Street. So, you confront some things about yourself.
And what did you think you needed to discover about yourself on this trip?
Nothing. Honestly, I didn't have the adventure is what drew me. And then when I was thinking about it, I went to see my mom on Mother's Day. I hope this isn't a broken record about my mom, but I went to see her on Mother's Day. And I had this feeling of like, I need to go to my ancestral homeland so I can report back to my mom. And I need to go to this town where this woman came from and tell her about it. And so I did it kind of for her in a way. It became less about me. Uh-huh. But let me tell you what I did learn, because that is super important. While I didn't have an intention of what I thought I would get, I trusted Lane. I trusted his invitation. I trusted that it would be transformational. And I just went on the adventure to see. And then I realized I did it, ultimately made the decision when I was not so sure, because I wanted to come back and tell my mom that I'd ridden my bike to the land of our ancestors. And of course she was like, well, why not? Right. So here I go. But here's what I learned. In my mind, I didn't have a lot of things. I wasn't seeking something. I don't think I was broken in any way, but I was in a rut of success. I was in a rut. I'd learned to play the game. I'd learned how to.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, I had learned. This was the big aha for me. I'd learned how to be a certain way to get certain things and be successful in a certain way, and it was now a habit. By the way, good habits. Like this isn't anything about not keeping up good habits, but to go to maybe a next level, to maybe see things differently and challenge myself and maybe, create an identity that now is bigger and better and somehow serves the world better. I needed to break out of this rut of seeing myself a certain way. And, when you're just broken down and tired and you need people, I would say the other thing. So, just getting bounced out of the rut of success and seeing myself differently, my identity differently and with less ego. And I hadn't had a lot of people tell me, hey, you got an ego problem, maybe go on a bike trek. But, it was just the game I was playing to keep in the path I was on. And as you'll see, a couple of years later, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm now helping people as a leadership coach and advisor. So, it probably led to some of that. But the other thing that I learned, I was very independent. And that also is a trait from my mom, fiercely independent, self-reliant. That's how I was raised, and just didn't like needing people. And by the way, at the time that made a lot of sense to me. And I thought actually that was a strength, and it is a strength, but like all strengths, if you're going to play them all the time, they're not going to be a strength.
It's a strength, right? Until it's not.
If it's the only game you have in your play, if it's the only play you have in your playbook, it's sometime it's going to break, and it might break hard, right? And what this taught me was while I had a lot of trust for people, I didn't want to be vulnerable enough to let them know that I needed their help. And in this experience, there's just times when, you need help, and you have to go ask for help, and you have to admit you're not capable on your own of doing what it is you've decided to do without someone's help. That's what was hard for me, basically, to know I can do it. I will do it. No, that's ridiculous.
What do you think it was that made you feel safe enough to allow yourself to be vulnerable?
There was no other way. I mean, I was committed to Lane's method, which was, hey, if this gets hard or you get uncomfortable, you can't pull your credit card out and solve your problem. Or, you can't. You'll miss the experience. Or if you leave. So I was committed to however hard it got, to however uncomfortable it got. I knew it would be helping me and helping me grow. So I was committed to doing that. And so I did. And so I saw the miracles of when I needed help from someone and they showed up. I saw the things when we just didn't know we were lost, or, we saw kindness. I mean, I can tell you, we were riding our bike because the map directed us through a military base outside of Copenhagen. And it's called the Bastion, or it's a fortress, Well, we entered the gate when it was open, say at 6, and the gates closed at 7. It was so big or maybe we came in at 6:50 and the gate was open, the front gate. We got to the other side, gate was locked. The gate was locked. The military, the security are locking it down for the night. Gates, we get to the guard. He's like, hey, kind of with a little bit of guard attitude, like, hey, why are you guys here? What are you doing? How did you get here? What do he's got a gun and he's just doing his security, military security. And we're like, hey, sorry, we're lost. We were traveling through the Citadel, and this was the path our map told us. And he's like, well, yeah, the gates closed, 15 minutes ago, and I can't let you through. And, we said, okay. And we had a conversation. We said, hey, listen, we started in Germany. Now we're in Denmark. We're going to Norway. We tried to get to know him. We asked him, and he was kind enough to relax and talk to us for a minute. And we said, we're not here to create any problems, and we just need to go forward. And we'd rather not have to ride 40 minutes back to the other gate and have somebody open that gate for us to let us out and then ride around. And he's like, I'm going to let you through. Now you know how this works, and but I'd like you guys to continue. So he opened the gate and he let us through. And I started realizing that, that you just have to ask. You have to connect to people and then say, can you help me? I need help. That's all I can say. I need help. And people see that. And what I learned was that people want to help. They see you, and sometimes we didn't know we needed help, or somebody came up to us at a grocery store parking lot and said, hey, have you guys seen this castle? What are you doing? Oh, we're from America and we're riding our bikes from this, and well, have you seen this castle? No, we didn't know about it. Well, yeah, if you have time, you should go see it. By the way, my house is over here. You can park your bikes in my backyard. I've got a gate. We'll lock them in, and you can, walk up to this castle. I can guarantee you'll never forget it. One of my favorite pictures of all these trips is me sitting at the top of this castle. Lane took this picture of me and got this relaxed grin, present look on my face. And it's because we had this experience, and because this person came and found us and invited us, and we trusted. And, and so this has led me to go with Lane through Ukraine and Poland. and I met some people.
And that's what I really wanted to go to next, this calling of service and this awakening in you, which I know is manifested recently with the trip, like you said, you went through Ukraine and Poland with all that's going on in the world. So yeah, definitely tell about that. And then the Black Rock.
Yeah. So Lane, my son that's working at Ogilvy, and I rode from Western Ukraine through Lviv and to Krakow, Poland. And it was just an incredible experience. And I wanted to see this post-Soviet country like Ukraine, see what it was really like, what the people were like. And I got to, through some crazy circumstances and just coincidences or miracles, however you want to call it, I met some people who were connected to a business there, a big business, like 15,000 employees. I told them what I did, and they said, well, you should teach a workshop while you're in Lviv at our company. I'm sure our company would love it. And of course, he's not the CEO or even an executive, but he introduced me to someone, Natalia, who was over leadership experiences. And, I said, hey, here's what I'm doing, and here's why I'm doing it.
This is prior to the Russian-Ukraine war, correct?
Yes, this was August 2021. I'm sorry, August 2021. Yep. And I said, the reason I'm doing this is to be better as a leader, to be more aware of people around me, to chisel away at my ego and insecurities, and to get out of the rut of success, and to just be more present. And by the way, the world looks pretty cool at 13 miles an hour on a bike and camping. And it's just an incredible experience. And you have this time to think, and then you're connecting with people that it isn't easy. They don't speak your language. The currency's different. And you have this opportunity to somehow up your game in terms of how you communicate, whether that's, hand signals or Google Translate or whatever, but it's not a rut. You have to work at it. You have to try, and you have to listen, and you have to be more intentional with how you relate to people. So and I'm telling her all that, and I said, by the way, getting out of your comfort zone is a absolute strength to be an innovator and to innovate. And they're an IT company. And she's like, okay, let's do it. So up till this point, everything had happened because of an invitation, Lane's invitation of me trusting that it would be an experience worthwhile to me, my invitation to, Sergey's invitation to talk to Natalia and her acceptance of that invitation and trusting it would be a worthwhile conversation, and my invitation to her to accept an invitation for a workshop, and she trusted. And I talked to the chief people officer because I've continued to do work for them. And she said, when I heard this crazy story about these two guys riding their bike, camping, and they were going to stop and teach a workshop, I said to Natalia, do you trust these guys? Do you know what their story? She's like, I was very skeptical, but it's turned out to be great because I've done a whole bunch of leadership work for them. But I have to tell you, so that's the experience. And Natalia's story will become important in a minute, but I have to stop and tell you this story because this is the story I teach in my courses about trust to people and companies and people I coach. There's a crazy organization that you can join if you're a worldwide cyclist like Lane is, which means that you're open to host people at your house and they're willing to host you. If they if they ship their bike to some foreign land and they're coming through your town, you can contact them through this network of cyclists and say, hey, could I get a shower at your house? Or could I, get a bed at your house or a meal at your house? And because this group wants to help everybody and love the experience of seeing somebody from another country doing this, they're open to it. So Lane contacts this guy, Siggy, in Krakow and says, hey, the three of us are coming to Krakow. You're one of the guys who said you're willing to host somebody. Could we stay at your place? And he's like, oh yeah, of course. He said, but you know what? My wife's from Norway and we're traveling to Norway, so we won't be there, but I'll leave the key with the neighbor. I got to tell you, that gift of trust to me, of I don't know you and I'm not even going to be there to meet you, but I'm going to let you stay for 2 nights in my apartment, was really remarkable to me. I mean, it still touches my heart as I say it today. And what it did for me was raised, and this is what I teach. This is the principle that I teach. It raised my trustworthiness. I wanted to meet the highest standard of accountability to Siggy for giving me his trust. I did not want to let him down. I wanted to leave his place better than I found it. I wanted to leave him money, even though he didn't expect it. I have tried, I've been back to Krakow. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I came and went. I've tried, haven't been able to meet. I've been to Krakow and I'm going again in 3 weeks. I want to meet him and thank him for the gift of trust. I mean, it was just remarkable. And then, he lived in this post-Soviet, apartment building. He couldn't have fit us. He had 3 kids, a wife and 3 kids. They didn't have a bed in that apartment. They had a futon that folded out. They pulled mattresses out of a closet and laid him down on the floor. He had he didn't have a lot. And so someone might say, well, he didn't have a lot. He didn't have a lot to lose. What he had was all he had. And if he were to lose any of it, it would have been a big impact because I don't know how he would have recovered. But he had the coolest apartment with a climbing wall with, finger and toe holds on the wall, drilled into the wall so his toddlers could learn to climb. And he had a world map on the ceiling and he had plants. I mean, the way they utilized this space, and you could tell they were a happy family, and they just opened it up to the 3 of us. And it's one of those moments for me that's, life-changing. I will never forget it. I will be grateful to him my whole life, and to tell this story about how much he trusted me, a stranger, and what that did to my trustworthiness, my accountability to honor his trust. And so when I teach leaders who are trying to be better leaders about trust, first thing I tell them is, you go first. Nobody has to earn your trust. You go first. You trust people and you believe in people. Now, there might be moments in situations where that's not a good idea. But in a company, the likelihood that someone's a criminal is very low. So it's a low risk. And by the way, if someone does burn you, who cares? Who really cares? 99 point something. You're going to raise their trustworthiness, their accountability. They're going to honor your gift of trust by being better, because they don't want to disappoint you, because this gift of trust is so valuable. And so, and I have people say, no, I'm not going to trust people. I was taught, you got to earn trust. They've got to earn their trust. They got to prove it to me. And I'm like, no, they don't. If you're their leader, you give them the gift. They don't have to earn anything. Your job as a leader is to trust people. Absolutely. And watch what will happen. I can guarantee you, it's a guarantee. 99 point something percent are going to overperform and exceed your expectations, because they don't want to lose the gift of trust that you've given them. So it's a powerful principle that I teach, and I learned it most powerfully in this experience. So we gotta keep going. The war starts. Natalia leaves as a refugee, Ukraine. I'd been doing work with her. She tells me she's got to leave and take her kids. By the way, these women are leaving with kids, leaving husbands, fathers, sons, brothers behind to fight. So they're going to a new country, not as a family, but as a split family. And it's terrifying. But they aren't, maybe I had a vision of refugees from like Africa or other places. These are, Natalia speaks 5 languages. She's got this, senior level role in a big company, just extremely talented, doing the same things we do, but now their country's getting bombed. And she sends me a picture of her kids. They're at the border. They're holding a grocery bag of clothes. Out of 7 kids, 2 of them are hers. But of these 7 kids at the border, and by the way, they're not trying to have an impact with this photo. She just wants me to know where she is and what's happening. And I felt like she wanted me to know I was like maybe somebody outside of that world who could, if something bad happened, could have a record of her, that she could be seen and know that she existed and mattered to the world. Right. And so I felt like she was sort of, I was sort of her testimony of, or witness of this experience for her. Whether she did that consciously, she never told me that or asked me anything about it. But I told my wife, I think Natalia wants us to know, to sort of hold these pictures as who she was. And so But my wife and I saw these pictures of these kids, and they had nothing personal. They had nothing of comfort. They're leaving their dad behind, their older brother, and it was just heartbreaking. I mean, it really was heartbreaking. And my wife's a quilter, and I said, "Do you think we could, send some quilts to these kids so they could have something that's comforting, that's theirs, that it's not just, utilitarian?" And I knew from my wife being a quilter that a quilt isn't a blanket for warmth. It can do that, but its real purpose is to care about someone, show someone that you care. All quilts that are handmade are made as gifts. You don't buy them in the store. I'm not saying that there aren't a few sold, but they're made as a gift of love. They're often given to a grandchild or to someone who's suffering, and everybody that's a quilter is making quilts, and they don't always have even quilts to give, but they have a store, they have them on the shelves in case someone down the street loses a parent or a child, and they're going to take them a quilt and put it around them and say, "I love you. I'm concerned about you." So we told Natalia this on a Zoom call, and tears came down her cheeks. And she said, I just can't believe that an American would make something for me, a Ukrainian. And that was an important thing to hear, because it said to me that she didn't think, because of her culture, because of her history, and because of this war, that she would be worthy of the love and care of somebody that lived in the United States. And I was like, well, we're going to prove that wrong. Of course you are. And we're going to ask some people to help us send some quilts over to you. We thought we could get a couple of hundred. My wife put it on Instagram. She had 146 followers. She didn't have this huge following. We had no evidence that we could do anything more than get a couple of hundred quilts. We knew we could do that from her friends. But from March 17th, the war, the invasion was February 24th. On March 17th is when we decided we would do it. One thing my wife said was, well, gosh, what if we got 500? Where would we store them? How would we get them there? And all I could say was, besides why not, was, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be an awesome problem to solve if we didn't have any way to know how to handle too many quilts? Okay, I hope that happens somehow. Well, since March 17th, every day, quilts have shown up on my porch from UPS, from the US mail, or from drop-off. People from all 50 states have sent quilts, and we have gotten them through another miracle, through a partner, to Poland. I've taken 3 trips to Poland and hand delivered many, but a couple of thousand probably. But as of last week, we had received donations and delivered over 20,000 handmade quilts. Now, when I would tell people that we'd had 1,000 and it was like a complete miracle to me, I realized I had to figure out a way to tell people what 1,000 quilts meant, because I'd lifted them all off my porch. I'd taken them to the people who were shipping them for us. And I knew exactly what that meant. I knew what a bag of 50 felt like, I knew how many quilts 50 pounds was, because that's the limit for extra baggage on, a flight to Poland. So 20,000 quilts is the equivalent of about 24 tons of quilts. It's the materials value is between 6 and 7 million. And the time is that donated to make the quilts is north of 300,000. It's about 36 years, 315,000 hours is about 36 years of time. And I had somebody say to me in April, by the way, we put a QR code on every quilt so that the person who gets the quilt, if they scan the QR code, a window pops up, not an email address or anything, but a window. And in Ukrainian, it says, "We love you. We care about you. We want you to know that we're concerned." And this quilt is to show that. And it's handmade by me. I hope you're safe. And then if you'd like to respond, this is all in Ukrainian, if you'd like to respond to the person who made this quilt, you can type your message here. So now quilters back in the US are getting contacted with messages in Ukrainian and broken English, and they have to go to Google Translate. But we're making these connections between these Ukrainian women and these women in the US who have made these quilts to help these women and their kids. And that has helped people trust our organization. That's what's driven the growth, is when they've had this, acknowledgement that they're making a difference, then they've been willing to trust us with more and do more. And what has surprised us is the gratitude of the people that are making the quilts. We knew the refugees would be grateful. We hadn't have any doubt about that, but we've had so many people come and say, thank you for the opportunity to share my gift, to share my talent. I didn't know how to help. I wanted to help. I've been concerned about these people. I didn't know what to do. And you've given me that. And I now have a friend on Facebook who's in Ukraine. And I was making one a month. Now I'm making one a week. And it goes on and on and on. But this guy said to me in April, are you concerned that the Ukrainians won't, the people won't make as many blankets in the summer because it's not cold and Ukrainians won't need to stay warm? And I had just never seen a quilt that way because of my wife and the experience I've had. I'm like, wait a minute. A quilt's, fifth priority is warmth. Its first priority is this is a gift of love to you. Its second is that it's unique. Quilts are made from a variety of different fabrics and patterns. And so there's a trillion variations of that, given all the options, right? And so a quilt's unique. And so a little 7-year-old that has no other quilt around is going to look like his. And it's his. It's very unique. You can wrap it around you, and it's a gift of care and love. And, so in winter, and we've pushed this, hey, we need more quilts because it's winter, but there's this distinction between blanket and quilt, and which brings me to the Black Rock.
Right.
So I had a chance to take this in a TED Talk and include my experience. Yeah, you've got one.
I got mine right here.
That's right. and give a TED Talk in Katowice, Poland, 20 miles from Auschwitz. A crazy coincidence that's where I was, and that my TED Talk would start with talking about Hitler, Jews, and how he could only see them as a Black Rock, something that was not unique, not powerful, that couldn't change, but that was fixed in his mind of who they were. And Putin sees Ukrainians the same way. And in my TED Talk, I would say, well, they're just Ukrainians, right? It's just a Black Rock, or they're just Jews, right? It's just a Black Rock. And I mentioned that sometimes companies see their employees as just a Black Rock, they don't see them as valuable assets. They see them as production assets, but not really who they truly are. And so they see them in a fixed certain way. And, sometimes truthfully, we see ourselves as just a Black Rock, maybe not capable. And we can't get out of that. And that's contributed to a mental health crisis. And I talk a little bit about suicide rates for youth. But the whole idea throughout the whole talk, and I taped 300 of these under the seats in this theater, old, couple 100-year-old theater in Katowice, Poland. And I mentioned that Black Rock thinking has led to, wars. It's led to layoffs. It's led to heartache. It's led to suicide. This way of thinking, of judging and thinking we know about someone without really trying to understand them or seeing them for what they can become. I'm stuck on maybe what they are at the moment versus what they can become. So that was and at the end of the TED Talk, I asked the audience to get out their phone and turn the light on, and to, put their phone flat like this, and I'll turn it so you could see it. But when you take this Black Rock and you put it over light, I hope you can kind of see that, but it is really...
And for those listening and not tuning on the YouTube channel, he's actually holding the flashlight function of the cell phone behind the Black Rock, and you can actually see through it.
Yeah, it's clear as glass. It's clear as glass. And so often as I've showed this to people, they're like, wow, it changed. And there is the magic of the principle. It hasn't changed. How we've seen the rock has changed. How we might see someone has changed. And so I challenged people, and I challenge anybody listening today to ask, what am I not seeing? And by the way, the antidote for Black Rock thinking is to say, tell me more, which is it's just a magic trick.
Yep.
And people will just open up. It's an invitation of trust. And then lastly, to listen after you've said, tell me more, to listen until you see the light in others, to see the light in that person you're having the conversation with. And so that sort of, this little principle sums up, I guess, my life of experiences that I shared in third and fourth grade and in college, and 25 years later, seeing the light in others, seeing the light in yourself, not seeing you for who you are when you start the bike trek, but believing that there's some opportunity for you to improve, grow, get better, because being a better human, being a better leader really is this mountain without a top. It's not a checklist that you can just click off. There's not an end point. If there is no destination for leadership, it is always evolving. This is what I tell the people I coach. It's always evolving because there's 8 billion people on the earth. And until you've understood all of them, there's work for you to do. So get after it. Good luck. So yeah, there you can go to a little website, you can order this. There's a little video of me talking about it. If I'm going to be shipping it to you. So there's a small shipping fee, but it comes with this little tent card you can put on your desk with the rock that says, see the light in others and treat
Here's
them
mine.
as if
Yep, I have it right here.
Yeah. Great.
Hal, we could keep going forever, but we've been on a great journey together for a while, from your earliest days, the phenomenal lessons, generational lessons from your mom. What's something that I should have asked you that I didn't get a chance to ask you that you wanted to make sure you shared if we didn't cover it already?
Nothing, but I do want to because I've talked a lot. I do want to point this out. You did ask me to tell me more. Right. This experience I just had, I talked about an experience in third and fourth grade I probably haven't talked about in a long time. I talked about my mom in ways that I probably have not talked about to anybody in a long time. They're meaningful experiences for me. But you asked more than once to tell me, hey, Hal, can you tell me more about that? Or, why don't you talk a little bit? And what that did for me today was bring up these experiences that I'm glad I had a chance to talk about, that I'm glad I was reminded of. So I want to thank you for your ability to do that and just have it be a witness that this works. We didn't plan it, we didn't script it, but you did ask me more than once to tell me more. And what you got from that was, oh, wait a minute, when I was 11 years old, I hadn't planned to talk about any of that. And I think that enriched the conversation. It enriched my experience being here, because I got to share some really cool things about my life that I hadn't thought about in a while. So thank you for saying, tell me more. I really appreciate that, Robin.
Thanks, Hal. If you could see my goosebumps on my arms, it was a beautiful conversation, and I can't thank you enough for taking us on that journey. Hal, where can people go to find out more about you and your amazing Black Rock, as well as your inspirational work you're doing with quilts for the refugees coming from Ukraine? And I can only imagine where you're going to go next with it.
Yeah, well, it's Wrap Ukraine with Quilts.com. That's the place I'd like you to go. And if you're not a quilter and you want to donate some money to help us advance it, we're now sending quilts to people in the United States because refugees are starting to come here. Most of them thought they could go to Poland and then return to Ukraine. That was their plan. But now they're seeing it. They might need to do something more long-term. Yeah. Some of them are choosing to come here. So there's a cost to shipping here. We've got a partner to help us ship to Europe. My business and my leadership and coaching is getbreakthroughleadership.com and / so you can go see about that, but / black-rock is the place you can get the free Black Rock. And I think it's in the notes as well. So if you'd like a rock, by the way, if you're a leader or a parent or whatever, I'll send you also a PDF that's an 8-page PDF on how to teach this principle, what some of the quotes are. Yeah. It's just a lesson plan that, like, tomorrow you could read that and tomorrow you could be teaching this really simply, and a 10-page PowerPoint that has sort of the key slides with some of the principles and pictures of the rock and stuff. So it's plug and play, ready to go if you want to share it with people, because what I'm trying to do is have more people in this world say, tell me more, and be more curious and less judgmental.
Love it, Hal. Thanks so much for coming on and being such an inspiration and making such a massive difference in the world and everyone you touch. So thanks again, Hal.
Thanks, Robin. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Forged by Trust. Remember, if you want to forge trust, it's not how you make people feel about you that matters, it's how you make them feel about themselves. If you are interested in more information about how I can help you forge your own trust building, communication, interpersonal strategies as your coach, professional speaker, or a trusted advisor for your organization, please visit my website at www.peopleformula.com. I'm looking forward to sharing my next Forged by Trust episode with you next week when we chat with body language expert Blanca Cobb and creating the relationships you want.